The laughter started before he even reached the manager's desk. It wasn't loud at first, just a low chuckle from behind polished glass counters and marble floors that reflected the shine of expensive shoes. But when the boy stepped further inside, the sound grew sharper, cutting through the quiet hum of printers and counting machines. Heads turned, eyes narrowed, and somewhere near the center office, a man in a tailored gray suit smirked openly. The boy's shoes were the first thing people noticed. They were worn thin at the soles, the fabric torn near the toes, the laces mismatched. His jeans were faded and slightly too short for his growing legs. His hoodie, though clean, had clearly been washed more times than it could handle. He looked no older than 12. But what most people didn't see, what they refused to see, was the steady determination in his eyes. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and never judging someone by their appearance, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that dignity has no price tag. The boy's name was Isaiah Carter, and he had walked nearly 4 miles to get to that bank. 4 miles through a neighborhood where sidewalks cracked like broken promises, where abandoned houses leaned into each other as if too tired to stand alone. 4 miles with one folded piece of paper in his pocket and a question burning in his chest. His mother had passed away 8 months earlier. Cancer had taken her slowly, cruelly, and expensively. Hospital bills piled up like winter snow, heavy and suffocating. Isaiah remembered nights when she pretended she wasn't in pain, nights when she smiled and said everything would be okay. She used to tell him that money didn't define a person, but responsibility did. She told him that even a small seed, if protected and nurtured, could grow into something strong. What Isaiah didn't know until after her funeral was that she had opened a savings account in his name years ago. He found the paperwork while sorting through a small metal box beneath her bed. Inside were birthday cards, school drawings, and a bank passbook with his name printed in bold letters. The initial deposit had been small, $50. But she had added to it whenever she could. $5 here, $20 there, sometimes just coins rolled carefully in paper sleeves. Isaiah had stared at the final handwritten balance from years ago. It wasn't much then, and after her illness, he assumed most of it had been withdrawn. Still, something inside him urged him to check. That was how he ended up standing in the middle of Fairfield Trust Bank on a Tuesday morning, surrounded by polished wealth and skeptical glances. The receptionist eyed him cautiously, as though he might be lost. Isaiah approached the counter with careful steps and slid the folded passbook across the surface. His voice was steady but soft when he explained that he wanted to check the balance on his account. She raised an eyebrow. Her gaze traveled from his worn shoes to his frayed cuffs. Then she picked up the book and walked it toward the manager's office. The manager, whose nameplate read Mr. Daniel Whitmore, was a man who had built his career on numbers and appearances. He believed success had a uniform. Clean lines, polished leather, confidence worn like cologne. When he saw the boy standing alone near the counter, he felt something close to irritation. He called Isaiah into his office. The chair across from the desk seemed too large for the boy's thin frame. Isaiah's feet barely touched the floor as he sat upright, clutching the edge of the seat. Mr. Whitmore opened the account file on his computer. He expected to see a few dollars. Maybe a closed account. Perhaps even an overdraft. He glanced at Isaiah and allowed himself a faint, dismissive laugh. "So you want to check your balance?" he asked, his tone carrying the kind of disbelief that bruises more than insults. Isaiah nodded. He swallowed, trying not to shrink beneath the weight of that laugh. Mr. Whitmore typed in the account number. And then he stopped laughing. The screen blinked once. Then again. He leaned closer, adjusting his glasses. His fingers hovered above the keyboard as if unsure whether to press another key. The balance displayed wasn't small. It wasn't modest. It wasn't even average. It was $427,893.16. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the faint hum of the air conditioner. Mr. Whitmore felt a flicker of confusion, then suspicion. He refreshed the screen. The number remained. The account history revealed something unexpected. Over the years, Isaiah's mother had invested the savings into a modest mutual fund recommended by a junior advisor who had since left the bank. The fund had grown steadily. After her passing, there had been no withdrawals. The interest had continued to compound quietly in the background, unnoticed. While the world had looked past Isaiah, numbers had been working in his favor. Mr. Whitmore cleared his throat, his posture shifting from superiority to unease. Isaiah watched him carefully. He didn't understand the silence. He only knew that something had changed. The manager printed out the statement and placed it on the desk, sliding it slowly toward the boy. Isaiah stared at the paper. He read the number once. Then twice. The digits blurred as tears welled in his eyes. He thought of his mother sitting at their tiny kitchen table, counting coins beneath a flickering light bulb. He remembered her saying, "One day, this will help you become whatever you want to be." He had assumed she meant a few $100s for school supplies. Maybe enough for community college textbooks. He never imagined this. The bank staff outside the office noticed the shift in atmosphere. The same employees who had whispered earlier were now peeking through glass walls, curiosity replacing mockery. Mr. Whitmore suddenly felt exposed, not by the money, but by his own reaction. He had laughed. He had judged. He had reduced a human being to the condition of his shoes. Isaiah wiped his tears quickly, embarrassed to cry in front of strangers. But they weren't tears of weakness. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of a promise fulfilled by a mother who had believed in him even when the world didn't. "What does it mean?" Isaiah asked quietly. Mr. Whitmore adjusted his tie. His voice softened. He explained the investments, the growth, the compounding interest. He explained that the money legally belonged to Isaiah. Isaiah listened, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He thought about the landlord who had been patient but firm. He thought about the scholarship forms he had hesitated to fill out because he feared rejection. He thought about the nights he had gone to bed hungry after giving the last portion of food to his younger cousin who sometimes stayed with him. This money wasn't just numbers. It was breathing room. It was dignity. It was opportunity. But what happened next surprised everyone even more. Isaiah didn't jump up. He didn't shout. He didn't demand anything flashy. Instead, he asked a question that made Mr. Whitmore blink again. How'd I make it grow more? The manager stared at him. In all his years at the bank, he had seen clients with far greater wealth behave with far less maturity. Adults twice this boy's age often demanded immediate withdrawals for luxury cars and impulsive purchases. Yet here was a 12-year-old in worn-out shoes asking about growth. Something shifted inside Mr. Whitmore that day. He began explaining long-term investments, education funds, diversified portfolios. His tone no longer carried condescension. It carried respect. Word spread quietly among the staff. The same teller who had smirked earlier now felt a twist of shame in her stomach. Isaiah left the bank that afternoon with more than a printed statement. He left with a plan. He withdrew only a small portion, just enough to clear overdue rent and buy groceries. He purchased a new pair of shoes, not expensive, just sturdy. He bought fresh notebooks for school. And then he returned to the modest apartment that still carried the scent of his mother's cooking. Life didn't transform overnight. He still faced challenges. Classmates still judged him. Teachers still underestimated him. But Isaiah walked differently now, not because of the shoes, but because of the quiet confidence in his heart. He studied harder. He joined the debate team. He volunteered at a local community center teaching younger kids basic math. He began reading about finance, about business, about entrepreneurship. Years passed. The investment account continued to grow, carefully managed under guidance he now understood deeply. By the time Isaiah graduated high school at the top of his class, the balance had crossed $500,000. But he didn't see it as spending money. He saw it as foundation money. Isaiah earned admission to a prestigious university on scholarship. He studied economics and community development, driven by a single vision, to create opportunities in neighborhoods like the one he grew up in. Mr. Whitmore followed his progress quietly. Something about that day in the office had left a permanent mark on him. He began volunteering in financial literacy programs, visiting underfunded schools to teach children about savings and investment. He no longer laughed at worn shoes. A decade after that first bank visit, Isaiah walked back into Fairfield Trust Bank. This time, the shoes were polished. The suit was tailored. His posture was confident but humble. But his eyes were the same. He requested a meeting with Mr. Whitmore. The manager, older now with more gray in his hair, recognized him instantly. Isaiah explained that he had founded a community investment firm dedicated to funding small businesses in underserved neighborhoods. He had already helped launch dozens of local shops, tech startups, and scholarship programs. He wasn't there to boast. He was there to propose a partnership. He wanted the bank to match his firm's microloans for minority entrepreneurs, doubling the impact. Mr. Whitmore listened, emotion tightening his throat. The boy he once laughed at was now offering the bank a chance to grow, not just financially, but morally. The partnership was signed within months. Fairfield Trust Bank established a new community development wing inspired by Isaiah's vision. And in the lobby, near the entrance, hung a framed quote donated anonymously. Never measure potential by appearance. Isaiah never corrected anyone who assumed he had always been wealthy. He let his work speak louder than assumptions. But sometimes, late at night, he would take out that old passbook and remember the sound of laughter echoing against marble floors. And he would smile. Not out of pride, but out of gratitude. Because that laughter had almost broken him. Almost. Before we close this story, if it touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of resilience and compassion. And I have one special request for you. Comment the word potential below if you believe no child should ever be underestimated. Isaiah's journey was never about money. It was about belief. A mother who believed in small deposits. A boy who believed in growth. And a world slowly learning that sometimes, the greatest balance isn't found in a bank account, but in the strength of a heart that refuses to quit.